Command-Shift-I. I'm going to navigate to my downloads. I know you guys already downloaded these. Your computers will import them faster than mine. And the folder is called Pink as Floyd. We're going to highlight all of those. And why is it giving me this convert sign?
Because your session is not correct.
Very nice. It means my sample rate, my bit depth wasn't optimal. It wasn't set perfectly. That's okay. Well, actually, let's do it. Let's do it the proper way. We'll edit this video. Zach, will you help me edit this video? This one's going pretty whack so far.
Yep.
Not my best work.
Or you can just start over.
Well, he'll just chop it out. Okay, so starting with the important stuff now, checking the sample rate and bit depth of the files that we're importing. So we got 48K 24-bit, so we want to make a new session, mix assessment, and I just saw it, but I forgot it, 48K and 24-bit. And now my computer won't have to convert all those files. It actually makes a big difference when it's a high track count session. We can save that. Then we're making a new folder. Command-Shift-I. And now when we grab these, it's going to give me the copy button. That's what I like. Copy them over. It's not converting them. It's not changing them whatsoever. It's just making a clean copy right into our audio files folder. New track. Our focus right now is on the stereo bus. So we know how to make it. We know how to get some inserts going on there. Now with 54 tracks or 56 or whatever, if they're all at unity gain, what's going to happen when I hit play?
It's going to clip.
It's going to be really loud and it's going to clip, right? So let's turn down the volume of everything before we even start. So go over here to where it says groups. There's already a group made for us, right? You see this group called all? All right, now click on all and then reduce the volume of any one of the tracks and it'll reduce the volume of all of them. That's pretty quick. I like that. In Logic, we have to like highlight across all of them, I think. I don't know what the shortcut key is for grabbing them all, but this one it's just turn on all, turn down the volume. The volume just went down on everything. Okay, now we turn off all. It's only on for that one function. Now we want to get our audio back up. It's pretty raw and it's pretty real. And these tracks are identical to what showed up for Tom Lord Algae, the guy that mixed it. Notice nothing shows up with any processing. That's standard. Everything comes clean. They want the mix engineer to put their polish on it. That's what they're paying him for. Okay, they don't want their plugins and their buses and their routing. Okay, that's not all included here. Unless you really wanted to commit to a certain tone or certain sound, you'd print that one plugin down. But a lot of times you're letting the mixer do their job, basically. You're wanting to get out of the way of the mixer. You want them to be able to put their skill set into the song. So we have all these tracks. Scroll to the bottom, highlight the last track, and then we're going to make a new stereo master fader track. So Logic has it created automatically. Pro Tools doesn't. We got to create it ourselves. So Command-Shift-N. Now, if you hold Command and push arrow key to the right, it'll change it to stereo. And then if you hold Command and push the arrow key down, it'll toggle through the track types. You don't have to do that, but just another little shortcut. Now, instead of our audio tracks going straight out to the speakers, which is 1 and 2, they're all feeding into this master to be processed before it goes out to the speakers. That's really important. Okay, that's to make sure that whatever global moves I do, I put them on this master and it affects the entire mix. Okay, so without getting too in depth with mastering, 2 processors you can feel confident putting on your master are 1, a stereo EQ, so multi-channel plugin, EQ, EQ3 7-band. Everybody has that. Okay, so my mix sounds like nothing right now. I haven't done anything to it. But this would be a good starting point. And then maybe I could go in here and find a preset that might point me in the right direction. Maybe, maybe not. This is, the smiley face is actually a pretty normal stereo bus EQ. Something subtle. If you have ozone, it works really well for these types of situations. Point is, we want you to accept into your wheelhouse putting processors on your master. Okay? So we've EQ'd it. Now we want to limit it. And the limiter allows us to get the signal as loud as possible without clipping. And so the limiter you guys have available is under multi-channel plugin. Go to Dynamics and go down to Maxim. And now look at the presets under Maxim. What looks like a good option? I want you guys to look on your end and then tell me.
CD master.
CD master, that might be a reasonable one, but it's going to dither it down to 16-bit. We don't necessarily need that, but maybe mixing limiter, I like that. That sounds like it makes sense. Mixing limiter, good starting point. It's going to make sure the mix is loud and full, but will not change the sonic characteristics of the mix very much at all. It's just doing some volume control. It even starts to sound a little more mixed, even with just putting those two processors on there. It starts to sound more full and more put together. Do we feel confident in how we can put master processing on our stereo 2-bus track in whatever DAW we're in?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to save it. We're moving on to the next step. Let's see here. So we got through, how about subgroups? We are going to do some subgroups right now so we can show you how to stem these out. So let's go make a a drum subgroup. So click the first track. And we're going to hold shift and click the last track of the drums, which is 18. So they used 18 mics on the drums. And why wouldn't you? You know, they probably had a $300,000, $500,000 recording budget. There's no reason to skimp on anything. They got all the time in the world, all the mics in the world, whatever they need. Red Hot Chili Peppers, they don't play around with this stuff. They've had a bunch of hit records, so they've got big recording budgets. Now, you guys tell me, how do I quickly make a subgroup out of all these tracks I selected? That's not a subgroup. That's a regular group. Very nice. Option shift, and now click the output. Very good. And then what?
And then go to new track.
Yeah, nice. Okay, what should I call it? Very nice. Drum bus. Very logical, very clear. He knew the exact steps. I love it. Okay. Now, what should I do with this solo button on the drum bus? Which is kind of something we have to just memorize. All right? And we do that so if I solo any of these tracks, they're going to feed through our subgroup or our aux track for us. It's called solo safe, solo isolate, kind of a memorization thing there. Okay. Now we want to drag this down to the bottom here. So it's in a logical place right below my drums. And now I want to solo all my drums. So let's make a regular control group. Highlight them all, and then what's my shortcut to make a regular group? Very good. And we'll call that drums as well. Now when I solo that subgroup, we should just have our drums. And that's our goal, is to build a nice mix of the drums so it sounds polished, it sounds as good as we want to, and then we bounce out that stem. The stem is all the drums bounced out as one stereo file, and then we bring that stem up on the SSL. And then we combine it with the other stems that we bounced out, and then we get our hands on the faders. We can use the onboard EQ, the onboard compression, all that fancy stuff once it's out in the analog world. And we want you guys to feel good about that process. So that's why we're pushing you on this one. What's up, Coleman?
It just sounds a little warmer when you send it through SSL.
Just without doing anything.
You just send it through it and it's like, huh.
And that's the same thing all the big mixing engineers say as well. There's a sweet spot on those consoles. And if you get the right voltage going through them, your mix is just, they got something else to it. They got some more roundness, some more low end, some more warmth. It's hard to describe what it does, but we know when we like it better. That's all that matters. We can listen to two versions and say, hey, I like A version better than B. We all have ears, so we can all make those kind of preferences. Any questions about making a drum subgroup with all 18 of these mics? Let's say that I really like my drum mix. I have not done nearly enough, right? I didn't put any processing on it, but it sounds fine. I want you guys to spend the time putting the processing on, but now I want you to feel good about how to bounce this out as a stem. Okay? So we're going to solo the tracks that we want to be in the stem. We're soloing the multi-tracks, or we're soloing the isolated tracks, or sometimes they call them the discrete audio tracks. Okay, we're soloing all of those, and then we're going to highlight the length that we want the bounce to be. Does that make sense so far? We solo the tracks we want to be in our stem, and then we have highlighted the length that we want it to be. Make sure that you always highlight all the way back to the beginning. You don't want to highlight, even though it doesn't start right at the beginning, if you highlighted like this, your stems would not line up when you do it because your guitars would be bounced at a different time. Everybody's all done this at some point or another. We've all learned this through experience, that when you bounce your tracks, you got to bounce them all from the same starting point. The end point doesn't matter so much, but they all have to bounce from the same starting point. Do we feel good about that? Okay, now we can go up to File, Bounce to Disk. Now, what should I set my bit depth and sample rate to be?
I'd say I would do.
What do you think it should be?
I would do 32 48.
It should be whatever it is, right?
It should be whatever it already is.
We want to avoid conversion.
We want to avoid conversions. Very good. And so it won't automatically put that info in here. If I need to see that info, I can go to Window, Setup Session. Tells me that I am 48K 24-bit. Okay, so that tells me how to bounce it. So you can use the shortcut too, which is Option Command B for bounce. Now we know that we want it 48K 24-bit. We don't need an MP3. We want a high quality wave. Okay, make sure that you selected this thing down here that says offline so it does it as quickly as possible. And now we're going to choose where it's going to go. How about my desktop under a new folder called Stems? We hit Open, we hit Bounce. My drum stems are going off into that folder. Now do that step after you've made the mix sound awesome. Use your fancy plugins. Use the school's plugins, whatever you got to make those. And Zach and me will help you every step of the way, of course, too. Is there any questions about bouncing out a stem? Okay, then walk me through the process for bouncing out another stem. You want to do guitars? I like it, Zach. That sounds good to me. So there's probably going to be a lot of guitars. Let's see here. So what am I going to do? You guys just walk me through every step of getting my guitars out of this mix. Let's assume that I've got them set to the level that I like.
From the first guitar to the last guitar.
Very quick and succinct. I love it. Select from the first guitar down to the last guitar. So there's one called effects guitar. That's fine. We can include that in our stem. We get to make those kind of decisions here about what we include in the stem. We just want to make logical decisions. We want to, we wouldn't want to group the strings with our drums or something like that. Okay, so we highlighted them all. Very good. What do I do next? What kind of group? A group or a subgroup? A subgroup. We got to remember there's a difference between the two. So how do I make a subgroup?
You Option Shift and command click the output.
You already did it on the first one, but it's all good. You know your stuff. I like it. Okay. So everybody with me on that? They're selected. Then I'm going to hold Shift and Option, and I'm going to select the output. And I'm going to go down to New Track. I'll call it Guitars. It's probably not going to put it in a very smart place. It's probably going to put it like up toward the top. Okay, it puts it right below the first one. I'd rather drag that below, but they're all selected. So to deselect them, I got to hold Option and click the track nameplate just to deselect them. That's always a trippy one. That trips people up a lot because it's like they're all selected. How do I get them deselected? I'm clicking other places. It's not deselected. The only way to deselect the track nameplates is holding Option and clicking one. Kind of goofy, but just how it is. So I'm going to drag the guitar track down here. And now how do I solo all my guitars?
You group them.
Create a group.
Regular group. Very good. So how do I do that?
Highlight all your guitars and then press Command G and then make sure to label it.
Perfect. And I probably should have done that step while they were already highlighted, right?
Yeah.
I could have done that a little bit quicker. Okay. Now what should I do with the solo button on my guitar subgroup? How do I do that, Nick?
Isn't it command? Just command and then click it.
Command click it. Very good. Okay. Now we want to solo all our guitars. Let's say I want to automate something on this subgroup and I want that to get bounced out because the directions ask that you commit to 3, I think, instances of automation. We want to make sure you're feeling good about what automation is. So first of all, automation is where mix moves or manipulations occur as the song plays back. So the quickest, easiest one is that I can do a volume fade. You guys see this line down here on my aux track?
Yeah.
That line represents volume. That's what it tells me on the track view selector now is volume. So if I want to manipulate volume as the song plays back, I'll adjust that line however I need it to. So I can go up here to my pencil tool and I can click and drag across. Or I can start down here and do like a more of a proper fade in. How would I automate the pan? If that's how I automate the volume, how do I automate the pan of the guitars?
Click down to the pan.
Click on what?
Where it says volume.
Nice. Click on where it says volume. Go down to where it says pan. And it's stereo, so I can pan left and right. So I could also use the grabber tool to click on these points, and then I can move them around and be a little bit more precise. So this is panning right now because it tells me pan left is the parameter I selected. What I love about automation in Pro Tools is this. With the Smart Tool, I can treat this like an audio clip. I can copy it and paste it, or I can highlight across and delete it. It's clean. Working with automation in Pro Tools is smooth as butter. Let's say I want to automate something more interesting like a plugin. Okay? I'll get through this in 4 more minutes and then we're going to go downstairs. We're almost there. Multi-channel plugin. I'm going to go to a delay. Let me grab a random delay here. Doesn't really matter what delay it is because it's the same process. So I'm going to kick this guy on. Actually, I want to turn off my automation. My volume automation is really wacky and terrible. Let's say I wanted that effect. Maybe I want that slow down sound from this delay. So I need to tell Pro Tools that we want to automate this knob. Okay? So to do that in Logic, you hit Command L and you move the thing and it recognizes it. It's a little smoother. In this, we got to click just a couple more buttons. Look up here where it says Auto. Stands for Automate. Right below Auto is this plugin automation window. And then we have to choose on the left side, what is the parameter that we want to automate? In this case, it's going to be delay seconds. We want to be able to toggle the delay time in seconds as the song plays back. Then we have to add it. Okay, we hit OK. And now when I click this drop down where I got to volume and pan, notice what's available to me. Try it on your end. So there's delay seconds. And now I'm able to draw in where this automation parameter is going to happen.
Can you also play it out? With like a touch mode or something?
Yes, exactly. I think I'm actually on the wrong... Oh, I meant to do... I did the wrong parameter. I should have done delay BPM because we're synced to... Or no, that'll work. That'll work. I switched over to milliseconds. Now I can go back to my delay seconds. And we should be able to manipulate the sound of this delay as it plays back. So it's reading the automation path. The path is tied to this knob on the plugin. Automating plugins is kind of how you get crazy effects. You can do a lot of sound design elements with it. How do I bounce out stems of my guitars? Let's say that I love that delay on my guitars. Man, the artist loved it. John Frusciante, he loved what I did to his guitar. He gave me a call already to tell me. He's way into it. He's like, man, I just need more of that automated delay time, and we're all set. How do I bounce out this stem of the guitars? Very good. But what do I need to make sure before I do that? I got to highlight the length that I want the bounce to be. And what do I need to pay attention to with the start point? All the way to the front, so it aligns with my drum stem. What's up?
Being that your ending point is like a hair off, is that going to matter?
No, the end point doesn't matter. The beginning point is what really matters.
Okay.
To do this right, I should highlight more than what I need.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, very, very good call, Sam. Luckily, if you don't highlight enough, you're okay, but the starting point has to be really precise. And it's just slam it back to the beginning. Okay, so then Option, Command B. It's already got the right things. It's already going into the stems folder, so I would want to call this guitars. That one's taking a little longer. Oh, there it goes. It had to get through that delay automation. Well, yeah, it's just more than one way to skin a cat. We've got two stems. Let's grab a string stem real quick. We're going to put it on a hard drive and take it downstairs. So lots of strings. String subgroup is created. I'm going to listen to it. Very sterile, very real sounding strings. They need some verb, they need some character. So we're going to highlight the length. Command Option B. We'll bounce it out as strings.
So this you subgroup it as a string, summon all of those ones.
The whole production.
Well,
So one to one copy.
well, once I bounce it, it's putting them on a printed copy. But when I just make it a subgroup, it has nothing to do with the bouncing. The subgroup is just taking those tracks and putting them in the same bucket, so that we can then process that one track. But when it gets to bouncing, it bounces them all out together. But have you made a summing stack in Logic before? Okay. Have you put an EQ on your summing stack? Or a compressor or anything? And so that effect, does it affect just one track or does it affect everything in the stack? That's all the subgroup does. Same exact thing. So it's so that if we put an EQ on the subgroup, it's EQing the whole entirety of all the drums feeding into that subgroup. It's a control method. Okay, we got our strings bounced. They're in the folder. And I'll take a vocal stem as well. So we're going to group those, Vox. Now we're going to subgroup those right quick. New track, Vox. Now we're going to solo just those guys. And we're going to make sure that the bounce length is correct. Command Option B. We'll call it Vox subgroup. But I want you to take the time to do automation, take the time to do processing. All that stuff happens before this part of the process. I kind of skipped 90% of where you got to put your effort on this assignment.
We have another Pro Tools class next semester.
Indirectly. Yeah, because you'll be doing Pro Tools in every class you have here. Post-production, you'll get hit hard with it. You'll have live sound next semester, so anytime you're recording.
So we'll learn how to process a kick in.
We'll make sure that you have exactly.
Snare.
Exactly.
How you do a snare.
100%. And we'll probably do a lot of that in live sound because in live sound you got to do the same type of processing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure Diode hits you guys hard with full days on, hey, how do we EQ that kick drum? How do we EQ that snare drum? At this point, we know the tools we need, right? But you might not know the specifics of how to use those tools, and that's up to us.
I know, like,
to help
the
get you up
theory
there.
Of everything, but then I don't know like how to make the software.
Right. Well, step one is knowing where the tools are, what we need to click on, all that stuff, and then step two is how do we, how do we really dive into the nitty gritty where you spend 3 hours just EQing a vocal.
That's what
Jesus.
But yeah, we'll get there for sure. I'm just looking for my flash drive because we're gonna go down to Studio A now. We're gonna pull these stems up. We're gonna break them out on the board, and we're almost there. Let me stop this video. Part